All right. All right. Thank you, Evie. What's up, Metro? Hope you guys are having an amazing day. Hi, Drew. I saw that. Super stoked to be with you here today on Hump Day, Wednesday, also team meeting day. So I just want to start off with a little gratitude for everybody on this call, especially everybody. Honestly, I'm really, really grateful for each and every one of you for what you bring to this team in this office. And it wouldn't be the same without you. So I just want you guys to know that from me to you, from my heart. So much love there. Let's go ahead and get into a welcome to the family. And we got a new agent that just joined us. And yes, the Humpty dance. Yes, Digital Underground. Let's go. I just aged myself. Myra, MJ is with us. So if you see MJ around, guys, say hi. Just give her some tips, give her some just knowledge, some wisdom that pours out of you guys. And just help her out anytime you can. So thank you for joining us, Myra. We are so grateful to have you. Welcome to the family. Welcome. So guys, I just did kind of a pre-bucket fill, but let's do an actual bucket fill from y'all. So who's got a bucket fill?
I got something.
Go ahead, Peggy.
Yeah, and Amy just got back from Greece. She's been gone for 2 weeks, and we have been doing lead gen time every single day. 8 to 12 since last June, a year and a half ago almost, so over a year ago. And we both show up every day. And when she's gone for 2 weeks, I would just want to let people know who have a difficult time being their own monitor on lead gen time, because in the last 2 weeks while she was gone, it was really difficult for me. I showed up, but it's like, it was very difficult for me to get through the time. There were days where I couldn't even focus on it. I had too many other things. And she is a person who helps me get grounded. So not only are we showing up for each other with Zoom, we show each other up for each other business, personally, inside to help each other. So I want to say thank you to Amy, because without her doing that, it would be a very difficult time for me to do my lead gen consistently. And I wanted to say that specifically for people who are having a hard time. Get a partner if you possibly can. Anybody will do. You build a relationship from the moment you start, and you don't know where the relationship will go. Yep. So just having that person there Monday through Friday, 8 to 12 is huge. Yep. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Peggy. It's such a good point too. And it kind of shows our culture and our family just dynamic. I mean, we're here to help each other. We all want to kind of come up together. And Peggy made a great point. Like when you have somebody as like an accountability partner or somebody to go through it with, it makes it that much better. And going through the difficult times are a little bit easier when you have somebody to help you out. So thank you, Peggy, for that. Any other bucket fills, y'all?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, Andrea, what do you got?
Well, I would like to acknowledge you.
Oh,
seriously, because you bring so much, like, just authenticity, integrity, and love to our culture here, and I'm so grateful to you. And I love just what you contribute to us, and it makes me feel like part of the family when I interact with you. And it was so great running into you today, and I love you.
Thank you so much. Like, I'm literally kind of tearing up right here. So thank you, Andrea. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. It's always what I try to do. So thank you. Let's do one more, y'all. One more.
I'll do it, Mike.
What's that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that came to give Nancy, our sweet Nancy and her family, the sweetest and warmest send off. So we appreciate it on behalf of the leadership. I know I appreciate it very much. So thank you all so much for being there for her.
Thank you, Evie. Thank you. So guys, real quick, before we move into the meat and potatoes of this whole thing, reminder, I heard somebody's doing a class after this. Oh yeah, it's me. Okay, so if you guys want to stick around for part 2 of the rapport building workshop, stick on this right after our meeting. Also, we have, Evie, did you want to go over those upcoming trainings?
Yeah, very quickly. Tomorrow we have Broker Bob's RPA Part 1, Contracts 101. That's at 10:30. And then Friday will be RPA Part 2 at 1 p.m. And then I'll have Anthony from Movement Mortgage go over the Mortgage 101, also happening tomorrow. So don't miss those classes.
Awesome. Thank you, Evie. So it's now time for our S&P Spotlight. And today we have Aaron from Storefront Creative. Aaron, are you here?
Hey, Mike, nice to be joining you guys today. How you doing?
Aaron. Welcome.
Good. Well, thanks for having me. Again, Aaron with Storefront Creative. I've been in the photo business for 20 years. I've been shooting KW for 13 of those years. I'm at 21 different marketplaces. Today, I'm at the Anaheim Hills office shooting today, so I've got a little bit of time to meet you guys. It looks like we'll be at your office, or I'll be at your office, October 29th, which I believe is a Friday. So for those that sign up, expect for me to find your best angle. Also expect me to give you that full digital makeover. So skin, teeth, eyes, hair, whatever the pandemic has robbed from you, I'll get that back to you. And just know that, I just keep my photo shoots nice and light and fun. And it's just good to be back at your office. For those that can't make the 29th, we're thinking about maybe doing another day, maybe in December, maybe January. Or you can also join me at some of my other market centers that I'm shooting at as well too. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Text message me, email me anytime you want.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it. Yeah, I need some of that pandemic help, bro. Help it out over here. So thank you. So we're going to move on now to our main man, Mr. Broker Bob. What's up, BB?
Me already. That's it?
You already, man.
Wait,
for the spotlight.
Mike?
Oh, no.
Yeah. We've got our wait, hold on. Yeah, we've got our launch. Sorry, I thought you jumped on the actual main feature already. Launch and growth spotlights.
Yes, ma'am. Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, let's give a shout out to everybody in the coaching program this week for some successes.
Awesome. Here we go.
Paulina, my little partner in crime up at Magic Mountain last Friday night, squealing like a girl when we were thrown from the bungee. He opened up an escrow, go back, Eve, close an escrow, open up another one, and got a VRE signed. You should have heard him and Drew when they were thrown from a bungee. I've never seen two men squeal. Anyway, Raquel, this is all in Team Alicia, by the way, got a VRE signed. And Carlos opened up an escrow. Great job, Carlos. And the Evie, that little whoop whoop in the corner kind of confused me. That's new addition. And congratulations, Team Clarissa is welcoming Liz Narat to her coaching program. Great job. Welcome aboard, Liz. And rejoining Team Clarissa is Abraham. Great job coming back, Abraham. Glad to have you. And then in Coach Carl's program, Kareen took a FSBO listing. I love that. Love to hear that. And then Matt Thornburg closed another escrow. He's been on a roll. Great job. That must be because he's getting married and his fiance is saying work. Glad to hear it, Matt. And is that it, Evie? Yep, that's it. Now, are we going into me or do we have something else in between?
It's talking about the growth coaching new edition.
Yes, and I'm missing my slide on that one. So it's, go ahead and BB for Sarah. Oh, wait, hold on. I do have it. Sorry. There we go. Let me just share.
New Kids on the Block, new edition.
There you go. There you go.
And then on Team Alicia, Sarah Hunter has joined the growth coaching program. Great job, Sarah, staying in the coaching program because that's going to guarantee you're going to cap in no time. Because I know Alicia will keep you accountable for that and will help you out tremendously.
Awesome.
Right,
thank you, BB. I appreciate
back to you,
it.
Mike.
So let's go ahead and give it over to Movement Mortgage. Who's taking the flag today? Who's going?
So we're all three of us are going. We got a bunch of stuff to cover, so I'm gonna go real quick.
Okay.
We have some awesome news as far as credit scores are concerned, you guys. Fannie Mae has completely revamped the way that they're going to be using credit scores to qualify people, and we just got an updated bulletin today. They're going to average the median score to make sure that you qualify and get up over that 620 mark. They're still using the representative score, so there's going to be two scores: average, median, and representative. The representative is still going to determine like what kind of rate you're going to be getting. So all of the adjustments based off your credit score are still going to be based off of that. However, if you have one person that's under that 620 mark and one person that's above it, and it averages out, you can get them into a conventional loan now, which is huge, because before you would have to take them off, you would have to look at FHA. I mean, you still probably want to look at FHA, but anyways, it opens up a huge amount of possibilities for us, which is great for the market. Also, want to give you guys a heads up. Now with all these iBuyers out there buying and selling properties really quickly, especially in the jumbo territory where we're at, there are a lot of programs out there that restrict and have a look back for these jumbos up to 6 months. So be very, very careful who you're dealing with and make sure that they understand that and they're taking that into account. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir. And I just wanted to quickly mention, if you guys have a buyer that you're working with that didn't qualify, talk to Ed or Amanda or Matt or Anthony or myself, and we'll be happy to take a look at it. We just closed escrow yesterday on a buyer who couldn't get a loan from somewhere else. So it happens all the time. I'll turn it over to you, Anthony.
So tomorrow we do have the Mortgage 101 training at 9:30 in the morning. We have posted the link for the Zoom meeting on the Keller Williams Facebook page. If you guys don't have it, I can post it again, but I believe it's also tagged there at the main part of the page. So definitely look forward to seeing you guys. Again, great introduction. If you're new to the industry, want to understand a little bit more about what we do as lenders and what the process is that your buyer should be expecting, or if you just need to have a little revamp of everything. So stop by, see us, look forward to see you guys tomorrow morning.
Thank you, guys.
Movement Mortgage, y'all were on point today. You guys have sequentially just made it happen. So they don't just do Zoom meetings good, guys. They can save loans and deals, right? They just said that. And I know there's a lot of that going on. So if somebody can't get qualified somewhere else, give them a shot, show them, the way to either Ed, Wes, Anthony, whoever on the movement team to help them out. So I just wanted to give that little shout out real quick. Let's go ahead and get into some pitches, everybody. What do we got?
I've got some coming soon, if I may.
Go for it. Thank you, Susan.
Hi, everybody. I have two to mention to you guys. One is if you've got buyers in Serra Mesa that have a budget that caps them close to 800. I have a new listing coming up on Gowdy Avenue. Gowdy is in an excellent part of Serra Mesa, and it's not a throughway, so it's a quiet street. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, just a little under 1,300 square feet. I think it's 1,288. It's on a 6,500 square foot lot with a 2-car garage. It's not coming on the market. We just signed the listing agreement yesterday, but we're not going to be putting it live on the market until November 30th because he has a shower that is in need of repair, which we had planned to not repair, but his insurance is requiring it because it's due. So here's the story. If you've got somebody, he has asked me to share it with you guys, with colleagues that I know. If you've got somebody in Serra Mesa, if there's a situation where they're willing to buy it and deal with the shower themselves, that's going to be an option. So this is Serra Mesa, $795 is the list price, 3.2. If you've got somebody, please reach out to me. I'll probably coordinate a showing at one time. And then coming up the first week in October in Coronado is a 2-on-1. It's a main house and a back house. The main house has 4 bedrooms, 2 bath, a little over 1,500 square feet, and the back house is a 2-1, just under 800 square feet. It's on F Street near 2nd, and it is on a 6850 lot, and we're listing it for $2,450,000. So certainly would love to work with somebody from the office. Both will be 2.5% commission listings. So I'll stick my number in the chat box if anybody wants to reach out. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Susan. And
I have one.
Aida has one too, right?
Yeah, I do, but I
Go
can
ahead,
wait.
Aida.
Oh, okay, sorry, I was on mute before. I
No
do
worries.
that all the time. It's a senior moment. But I'm pitching actually Corinne's property. It's at 934 Cedar Avenue in Chula Vista. I've actually walked the property. It's really nice. Showings start Friday. There will be an open house Saturday and Sunday. It's listed on official records as a 4-bedroom, but it's actually a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. One of the bedrooms was converted to a nice walk-in closet with a little sitting area, a cedar closet, so really well done. The garage is a 2-car garage, but also has a charging station for electric car. The home has solar, and I believe there's something that could be worked out with the solar. It's almost paid off. And a very long driveway. So if you have a boat or an RV or toys, it's in a cul-de-sac and the driveway goes in deep. There's plenty of room for that, and to still enjoy a nice front yard that you walk into that's very tastefully done. Backyard is an entertainer's delight. It has a swimming pool, jacuzzi, already a built-in patio with seating area, little mini bar. So it's very nice, gets nice cool breezes in the location. It's a very nice area right off L Street, if you know Chula Vista. The lot is a flat level lot, 7,970 square feet. The house is 1,744 square feet. Any other information, indoor laundry, reach out to Corinne Isidro, and in our office, she's on Carl's team, and it's a great property. Oh, list price, did I say list price? List is, ooh, I had it written down here. 727. So
Awesome.
not bad. That's a great deal.
That's a great, I want to go hang out at that house right now.
Oh, I know. It's one of those things. I wanted to jump in the pool, but I stuck my foot in a little bit.
Yeah, you got to just test the waters a little
Yeah.
bit. Thank you, Aida. I see your hand up, Peggy. Go ahead.
Okay. I just picked up a listing today. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, but it's a 3% commission coming out of El Cajon. Where can you find that? Not easily, not easily. So 3% commission, it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. It's on Graves. It is a condo. And if you want any further information about it, we're listing around 330. Let me know if you have any questions. I will be around here 24/7 for the rest of my life. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for the smile, Peggy, and the awesome listing. I appreciate that. Let's do one more, guys. Do we have one more? Going, gone. Okay. So guys, buyer pitches or buyer needs, let's go ahead and throw those on the Facebook page, please. And without further ado, let's give it back to our amazing broker, Broker Bob.
Thanks, Mikey. Great job being a lead-in MC today. Really appreciate it.
Sir.
All right, everybody, let's get moving into this. We're going to talk about a few things today. I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint. Yeah, that's my schedule in case you guys wanted to see it. All right. Okay. Oops. Uh-oh. I didn't have the beginning loaded. I apologize. Now we're there. Can you all see that?
Yep, we
And can
can.
everybody hear me? Perfect. All right. So here we are, September already. We only have 3 more months left of the year, which means, as Ashley will say in her stats each month, what you do today will pay dividends in January. But she always has some funny date to call out. So I'll just call New Year's. So if you really want to rock a New Year's Eve, get to working. Okay. So here's where we are today. Give you some hot topics. Actually, it was already presented, but I'll just reiterate. I have an updated COVID protocol for the office, so I'll announce that today. And Evie's been kind enough, she's going to make some signs to post later today. We're going to talk about the perils of SIPs and RLAS, but mostly it also encompasses the listing of tenant occupied properties, because there's been a lot of phone calls lately to me and Mark about, hey, I have a seller that wants to sell, but they have a tenant in the property. What can I do? So I'm going to give you the advice you need to be giving. And then we're going to review the defensible space advisory disclosure addendum and review that, because I think and I believe that a lot of agents will be confused about what to do on that, and they'll expect the TCs to take care of it, and it's not the TC's duties. And then the perils and pitfalls of coming soon and holding listings off market. I'm going to review what got someone in trouble here recently, and they had to pay a $500 fine. So you want to pay attention to that. And then I always mention Mark's initial review and final review message and Q&A if there is any. So just to reiterate, Evie already announced it, but this Thursday we'll be reviewing the new 2022 RPA, which is launched December 16th, I believe is the date. And I'll be going over it, and the way I'll go over it, I probably won't go like I teach the existing RPA. I'll be going over some of the newer features. Anyway, you know what? Just show up. If you want to go to the car training, they have lots of that, but you pay 75 or 125 bucks to do it. You get me for free, virtually. You know, sometimes it might cost you chocolate, which I like chocolate, and donuts. But we'll try and make it fun. It's going to be an hour and a half for each session. First one Thursday, 10:30, and Friday at 1 o'clock. Sorry, it's not identical times each day, but you know what? Something came up in my schedule and I had to move things around. So to accommodate the instructor who's going to spend, and trust me, I've spent 8 to 10 hours of listening to webinars on this, and it's freaking boring as F, and I'm going to try and make it as fun as possible. So it is interactive. I do allow questions, and then I mute you when I'm done listening to your question. Okay.
Robert, quick question. Sorry.
Yes.
Is Thursday and Friday's class part 1 and part 2, or is it a duplicate?
It's no, part 1 and 2. I'm going to break it into 2 sessions. Thanks. Good question. Thanks for that clarity. Clarity is power, Susan. That's a whole lot. Yeah, I'm going to, because it's 16 pages. So I'm going to, the first day, get through as much as we can, and then get through the second day. And they're an hour and a half, because I figured at anything longer than an hour and a half, you guys really start getting bug-eyed. And that's where I got. Okay. And it'll be recorded on YouTube. So if you can't attend it live, we'll have it there for you at your leisure. You have, you know, on those nights, Susan, that you can't sleep and you just need some Broker Bob, you know, my soothing voice to put you to sleep. You can go put on YouTube and listen to me bore you to death with RPA.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, anytime. Okay, updated COVID protocol. Changed things a few months ago with the Delta variant, and it looks like we're navigating through that. So here's the new protocol. We still have a mask policy in our office, and the mask is only required if you are unvaccinated or you have feeling symptoms of being ill. So if you're unvaccinated and symptoms of being ill, you're asked to wear a mask. But actually, if you're ill, stay home. We don't want your sickness here at the office. Just don't, I mean, I don't care if you have a cold, let alone COVID, don't come into the frickin' office. We don't want to get sick, you know? And I like the fact last year that there was no flu and cold season because we were all sequestered at home. So unmask, wear a mask in the common areas, and I will be sending you back to your office if you don't have one on. Okay, if you do have them, if you are vaccinated and you want to wear a mask, it's your choice. Okay, all right, that's it. We'll have those signed posted today. All right, so the perils of seller in possession, residential lease after sale, listing a tenant occupied property. With COVID, most brokers were shaken like a leaf because of and most smaller landlords were at the mercy of the COVID eviction moratorium. And so a lot of landlords had a lot of problem not getting paid. And there's a lot of landlords that couldn't sell their properties and they couldn't get rid of their tenants, and the tenants weren't paying. And some of them weren't even affected by COVID, the tenants, that is. They were just taking advantage of everything. So I get a lot of phone calls about, hey, I have a listing potential, or the seller wants to list a property, but it's tenant occupied. So I'm going to go over exactly what you need to do, but I want you to write down that that website down there, the housing.ca.gov. That is a website you need to bookmark, save, because anytime you have any of the above, the SIP, the RLAS, and the tenant occupied properties, you need to have that link sent to your principal, whether they're a buyer or a seller. Many of you know that or maybe you don't know, but the SIP allows a seller to stay in the property 29 days or less. And that would be needed to be completed. That SIP form needs to be completed prior to the close of escrow, but it should be completed at contract consummation. In addition to the RLAS, which allows the seller to stay in the property 30 days or more after close of escrow, usually up to 60 days, because if a buyer's buying it with a loan, they have to move in within 60 days. It's important if you're representing a buyer and they're buying a tenant occupied property or a seller that's going to remain in possession of the property, that buyer needs to know, hey, you are now a landlord in the eyes of the state of California. And you have every right, duty, responsibility as the landlord, and the tenant, who is now the seller, now has the rights of being a tenant. And the tenants are always favored in the state of California. So if you're ever in a situation where you're representing a buyer and that buyer's removing every contingency, including letting the seller stay as part of a sweetening the deal to get the offer accepted, you've got to make sure you guide that buyer to let them know of the perils of what it's now that they're going to be a landlord after that escrow closes. We had a situation came up with Sal. Sal will let me share this, but he represented a seller and the buyer let the seller remain in possession, and then the seller had an agreed upon move out date, and the closer the date came, he realized he wasn't going to be able to move out. Now, at that point, agency had already stopped. It ceased at the time that escrow closes. We no longer have fiduciary to that principal. So we technically couldn't do anything. Yet the broker on the other side of the transaction, as well as the agent, was attempting to get us involved in the situation, to which I guided Sal, and Sal knows as well too. Hey, we're out of it. We don't do anything. And that's exactly what he said. And I love the fact that Sal listens to what I says and does what I says, because he knows he doesn't want to mess with it. And you don't want to mess with it either. Once you close escrow, you are completely out of the situation. So here's where you guys are then kind of put between a rock and a hard place. You represented a buyer. Now the buyer can't get the seller out, and they're looking to you to help. And then you didn't guide them properly prior to close of escrow. And you didn't tell them that they need to understand what it's like to be a landlord in the state of California. And you didn't guide them to tell them they need to read the housing.ca.gov website to understand the rights of a landlord in the state of California, so that they're completely aware. And then guess what? Then they have a case against you. They can make a claim against you if there's any damages, and they come after you for that claim. So I bring this up a lot because I want to make sure you understand, and I'll harp on this over and over again, that you make sure you're guiding your principals to get the advice, the legal advice up front that you can't give them, because we can't give legal, tax, zoning advice to our parties. But we need to know where they need to go to get it. Okay. So when listing a tenant occupied property, don't do that to me. Here's my guidance. Agents should advise the buyer or seller in writing. In writing, what does that mean? You put pen to paper, or can you send an email? You can send an email. Okay. But it's best if you send the email and you also in that email state, please confirm receipt of this email by sending an email back to me that you've received it. If they have questions of a legal nature regarding a seller in possession, RLAS, or tenant occupied property, that they should contact a real estate attorney and advise the parties. They should also consult with their insurance advisors whenever title and occupancy do not transfer on the same date. So if you have a buyer that is letting the seller stay in that property, that buyer needs to also let the insurance company know that, hey, we have a seller in possession of that property for X amount of days. What should I have on my insurance in the interim? You might need to get a rider. The buyer might need to get a rider on their insurance because it's technically a rental property at that point. They might even need to up their insurance during that period. Last thing you want to happen is that seller who remains in possession falls down and breaks his leg and decides to sue the buyer / landlord because they didn't protect them. We've seen crazy stuff like that in California. And then all of a sudden the buyer doesn't have enough insurance to cover that frivolous lawsuit, and then they look at us. Okay. When you're negotiating the RLAS or the SAP, Mark came up with this, and it's really smart. Consider adding a per diem for every day the seller stays past the date, the agreed upon date. See, some of these transactions are being negotiated with the sellers paying nothing. So they have the SIP and the RLAS with $0 on it. Well, if the seller decides he's going to stay after the agreed upon relinquished date of the property, then if the buyer wanted to go back and sue the seller for damages, they're going to have to figure out what the dollar amount is that they're going to want to sue. So if you put that on the documents, the per diem, that way there's a dollar amount to actually place on what that buyer landlord could recoup if they had to sue and sue for damages. So consider applying the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance as the base amount for rent. Is there any question on that?
Yes, Robert. What about putting, like, let's say the SIP ends on day 31. And
The SIP only applies if it's 29 days.
oh, right, I got them straight. The RLAS, sorry, ends on day 31, and you put in something like any, I don't know the technical word, but basically charge $250 a day or whatever per day after the 31 days.
Mm-hmm.
Would something like that work?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question.
Oh, when they say past the date, I see. I didn't read that part. I thought it was while they were in the home. Got it.
It's past the date, agreed upon date that they are going to stay in the property. And we have had that happen multiple times this year. And then what's really disconcerting is the broker on the other side has no idea what they're doing. And I have to educate a broker that, hey, escrow's closed, so agency stopped. But they're just trying to look good in the face of their buyer that they help navigate the contract. But I'm like, hey, you need to go to broker school, dude. And unfortunately, we are knowledgeable who this broker is. Even Ashley knows him, but he's just a Yahoo. Anyway, okay, so this is this housing.ca.gov website. It's a really good website too if you have some renters that need some input on if they're trying to get COVID rental assistance. But so you got rental assistance, you have eviction protections, and you have foreclosure assistance for homeowners.
Question about this?
Now, back to the tenant occupied properties. And even though the national eviction moratorium is over, there's still state and local and even county eviction moratorium stuff in place, which is why we don't guide. So if you do have a seller that has a tenant occupied property, you do not give guidance. You can send the link for the housing.ca.gov, but you need to advise them that this is a legal nature, and you need to see first whether or not you can even give notice to the tenant that's in your property if the landlord's wanting to sell, and how they need to do that. And they have to speak to an attorney. We're not giving them guidance, because if we're wrong, we could be held liable. Okay.
Robert, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can the RLAS be longer than 60 days?
So that depends on whether or not the lender, and most lender requirements are, if a buyer is buying a home, they have to move in within 60 days. By 60 days, they can't move in 90 days. So
Okay.
that's a question for the lender that the buyer is using. So you refer that buyer back to their lender.
Okay, thank you.
Most federally guaranteed loans says the buyer has, because they're getting an owner occupied rate on their property, not a investor rate. So they want that buyer to move in within 60 days is the minimum standard. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, anything else that you can point out on that I maybe didn't cover?
On the RLAS or SIP?
On any of them?
No. I put a couple of notes in chat just for everybody, so I could visually see that nothing else.
Can I ask a question about that, Robert?
Yes.
Is there a way to tie up funds as collateral for the seller not vacating the property as per the agreement? So seller to pay $10,000 if property is not vacated by the 29th day or 31st day or whatever, and then those funds be withheld from the disbursement in escrow until the move out date?
If escrow is willing to hold it.
Both of those forms have provisions for deposits. So, it would depend on the value of the property, what the PITI was and that kind of thing as to what the deposit would be appropriate. And it's also, the whole concept of a per diem is a disincentive for that seller to stay. So if you have $5,000 tied up in a deposit that the buyer needs to release, that's good incentive for them to move.
Yeah, I was just thinking that this might be more advantageous to the benefit of the buyer because that money's wrapped up rather than it not being held up, because an open-ended agreement they have to be, it's X amount of dollars per day after the 29th day. It's like, well, that's kind of an open-ended agreement. If you just put something definitive saying, if they're not moved out by the 29th day, there's a $10,000 fee or allocation towards the buyer, then it's, they don't have to go to court because that money's already held up in escrow and having to, go through that process. That was my
the better way to do would be to release the deposit to the buyer, and the buyer can have that as the deposit. It's harder to go after the money if it's not exchanged hands, and most escrows don't want to hold money past close of escrow. So depends on the escrow company if they're willing to do it, but really the best way to negotiate, the best practice is to have the buyer get a deposit. This did happen. We represented the buyer, and this seller, I believe, took some appliances they shouldn't have, and the buyer fortunately had the deposit, and so they were able to deduct that amount of the appliances the seller refused to bring back.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Deposit in. Okay.
Oh, Carl, I was just going to say, sorry, this is Emily. I was just going to say, I usually do both. I usually do a per diem and a lump sum that escrow hold back. If escrow won't hold it back, I do it broker Bob said, and I have the check cut in the seller's name, but hand it over to the buyer at closing or a few days afterwards. If the sellers are intending on leaving, it's a non-issue. I've done this on many, many deals this year already.
You know why, Emily? That's why you're one of my favorite agents.
Yeah. You heard it here, folks.
Hey, Bob, real quick. I had this actually happen to me when I bought my house, and I let the owner stay in it for a month, and we held $5,000 as a security deposit and made him sign a lease for that month that they were staying, and escrow held the money back, and it was virtually impossible to get escrow to release that money. So I agree with you 100% because we both had to agree for escrow to release it. He wouldn't agree. I didn't want to give it to him because he caused damage to the house moving out.
Yeah.
So getting that check really helps.
Put that money in the hands of the buyer, and then there's no questions. All right, defensible space. This is the question that has probably Mark more worried with compliance, making sure that this is taken care of. So what is the defensible space? It's a buffer zone that homeowners create between a structure on the property and any flammable grass, trees, shrubs, or wildland area that surround it. There are state and local laws that require certain property owners to maintain defensible space on their property. So beginning July 1st of this year, the sellers need to provide documentation that their property is compliance with whatever dispensable space laws are within their area they live, or buyers will be required to agree to obtain such documentation of compliance in the future. So it applies to single family residential condominiums, 1 to 4 units, where the property is located in a high or very high fire hazard severity zone, and where a TDS is required. So we say get guidance from a natural hazard company because they're the ones that will see it on their report, but we've discovered that not all NHD companies say the same thing. So if you are a listing agent and you're taking a listing in a high fire zone, or if you're not even sure, this is one of the first reports you need to get right away to get it worked out. So the seller will know whether or not they need to have this taken care of as you go through escrow. Don't wait and start it when most people start to have the sellers fill out disclosures, which is right when the property starts to gets an escrow. Get this done up front. This FHDS form is one of the dirty fives. We call it the dirty fives because there's 5 forms that if you do not provide to the buyer, and let's say the buyers removed all their contingencies and these forms weren't provided, that buyer still has a right to cancel, no questions asked. The 5 forms are the TDS, the SPQ, the NHD, the AVID, and then this form, the FHDS. So don't be the agent that is lackluster in getting the seller to get the disclosures out, and understand this because basically most areas in San Diego County will fall under high fire zone. So for areas without a local ordinance requiring the owner to get this documentation, either the buyer must agree to obtain that documentation within 1 year after closing escrow, or if the seller has obtained the documentation of compliance within 6 months prior to entering into a contract. So see, not only is it going to come on the seller, but then if you are representing a buyer on a transaction that the seller and the agent on the other side didn't give this form, now it's the responsibility of the buyer to see that it gets done. And then the buyer comes to you and says, I got to clean out all this brush around my house. You never told me that. And it's going to cost me $200,000. And they're not very happy with you. So just because I say listing agents, buyer's agents, listen up. Make sure you go through the NHD report early on and say, does dispensable space responsible here, and what is my buyer's rights, duties if they close escrow, and what is the seller giving us to prove all this? And every area has different ordinances, so you need to know each area. Mark, on the statewide call, they talk about the CAL FIRE coming out to do an assessment of the property, but didn't they say that CAL FIRE has a 2-month waiting list to even come out and do that?
I think the one important thing for everyone to know is that this disclosure is just a disclosure from seller to buyer. There is no point of sale requirement to obtain an inspection report to transfer title. And that was a big misunderstanding when this was first announced. And even the CAL FIRE website had misinformation on it stating that a report was necessary. It is not a point of sale requirement at a state level. And it's the County of San Diego ordinance also is not a point of sale requirement. Now, that may be still something to be investigated because there may be some local fire department that has an ordinance that says if you're going to transfer title, you need to have this report. But we don't know that that exists in our area at this point in time. We have no knowledge of that. So it's not a point of sale requirement. So if you have a cooperating agent or broker tell you you have to have this report, that's not true. And part of the reason everyone believes that is because of this misinformation that was passed out.
So when in doubt, reach out and ask for guidance. Okay. Just understand though, that you need to make sure you guide your buyers and or sellers properly so that there's no claim against you post-transaction because, well, I'll save that question but what's the one question that, or what's the one statement that a buyer or seller will say if they want to sue you? What do they say to me?
I was never told that.
Yeah, your agent never told me that. Okay. Dahlia, you have your hand up. Is it still up?
No, that was earlier.
Okay, you can take it down, please then.
Sure.
Robert, John has a question in the chat, and he says, is this a required disclosure with every brokerage in San Diego or California? The defensible space law has been in place for a long time. The homeowner has a duty to have this defensible space in place by law. What's changed as of the 1st of July was disclosure from seller to buyer being required. So the answer to your question is we require it in every transaction. The form be used in every transaction. And because there's other sections of the form that may or may not apply to it as well, in addition to the defensible space.
So there's your non-answer.
I think what I think whenever I see that disclosure is that the issues that can come about from people filling it out wrong could maybe end up being, or like, I guess, end up being non-disclosure issues, could end up being worse than not including it at all. I mean, people just zipping through it and filling it out wrong, which, because it's the I think the most complicated disclosure I've probably come across in terms of if the answer isn't no, that it's not in a high fire zone, that it's just ripe for huge non-disclosure issues.
Well, that's why it's important, John, then for an agent to be knowledgeable of the form. And
I agree, but how many? Okay, yeah,
I know, right?
I'm talking practically.
I want you guys to be knowledgeable. Like, let's look at the form and say, hey, should I ask questions about this? Should I see if it's right or wrong? I really want you guys to reach out if you guys have any doubt and have questions, rather than just accept the word of the agents on the other side of the transactions, because there's a lot of dumbass agents on the other side. I'm sorry, there is on transactions that we come across, and most of them are we'll find that the TCs are running the transaction, not the agents. And half the brokers in San Diego County don't know what they're doing. Sorry, they don't. We've seen it all. So,
yeah. Okay.
The perils and pitfalls of coming soon and hold listings off market. So this is something that the DRE is really aware of with this new clear cooperation policy and everybody trying to navigate through it. Do we put it in coming soon? Do we hold it off market? And you could really get in trouble if you don't follow a set of procedures when you have something that's going to be coming soon and off market. The DRE states that a listing agent who encourages the use of the coming soon program without broadly advertising a property via the MLS or other means can expose themselves to a potential for an increased chance of civil liability and regulatory action when the agent also then represents the buyer in a dual agent capacity. And this is where a lot of these coming soon and off market properties are happening, where all of a sudden you see on the MLS that, oh, brand new property hit the MLS, 0 days on the market. Oh, and it's a dual agency represented by that same listing agent. They represented the buyer. So if that happens, the dual agent needs to be able to demonstrate that they acted in the best interest of the seller to obtain a purchase price that was as high as they could, and they fully marketed the property. Any agent who receives a commission on both ends of a transaction could face scrutiny, questioning whether they worked to obtain the best offer possible for the seller, or was acting in such a capacity for personal financial gain. We had a long-standing policy when Leona was managing broker that she would not allow dual agency by a single agent. I softened that up a bit, but it has to have approval by me. I have to know about it, and I have to know every circumstance, because I'm going to navigate to make sure that you are acting in the best interest of the seller, and so that there is no chance of civil liability or regulatory action against you. So if you're an agent and you're going to take a listing and mark the property in the coming soon, you need to explain the benefit to the seller of using the MLS and the impact of opting out. For the seller to instruct the agent to opt out of the MLS, the seller and the broker must initial the section 5, paragraph 5 of the RLA. That means opting out of the MLS. And then additionally, the seller must sign the form SELM, seller instruction to exclude listing from the MLS, or the comparable form, which SCR has a comparable form. You need to make sure if you're going to do that. So, and this is where I get concerned when an agent's representing an investor that goes in and buys a property, and this is the litigation we're in right now. And I can't speak to the merits of the case, but we're probably going to do a payout. And I'm not happy about it because it's the first payout under my helm, and I've been running a really good record. But the case in this was similar, that the property did not go to the market. And the seller is coming back up to 2 years later and saying that the agent did not market the property through the MLS, and therefore we did not get the full value of the property we could have had it been marketed on the MLS. This is 2 years after. Now, the merits of that case were completely different, but this is exactly what they are falling under, because this property didn't go to the MLS, that we're doing a huge payout. And it's going to be possibly in the mid to high 5 digits. Okay. So if you're using the coming soon status in the MLS and you just happen to be representing the buyer as well as the seller, there's some best practices that you should be doing as a listing agent. One, don't hold it off the market. Make sure you have some market time on that property or some other means of advertising that you prove what you did. And that was one of the things in this case we attempted to prove, since it wasn't on the MLS, how else did we market it? Did we do flyers to the neighborhood? Did we do a broadcast email to all the real estate agents in San Diego County? Make sure the seller agrees to and understands how the property will be marketed. If you're using the coming soon strategy, do not accept and act on offers until a property has been broadly marketed. I had a phone call from an agent the other day, and they were specifically asking about the coming soon status in the MLS. And she says, Broker Bob, I have a coming soon property and I have a buyer and we have some offers in, and I need guidance on these offers, and here's what I need to do. So before she went any further, I said, wait a minute, you have an incoming soon in the MLS? She said, yes. Did these buyers come in and look at the property on the inside? She said, yes. Okay. What's the number one rule with coming soon? If it's in coming soon status in the MLS, what can you not do? Anybody?
You can't show it till it's active.
Exactly. Thank you, Susan. You cannot have buyers step foot in that property. That's what the clear cooperation policy is all about, and the coming soon status, that every other agent in the MLS has an opportunity to show their buyers. And so thus, this agent had to not accept any of those offers and put it active in the MLS so that everybody else, and this isn't where the DRE is going to give oversight. Who's going to give oversight on this? Anybody? Who do you think is going to turn you in? Not me.
The buyers that didn't win.
The agents of the buyers that didn't win. They're going to call the DRE and say, this agent did not allow me and my agent to go in and look at this property. Okay. That's where one of our agents got in trouble. And it was a $500 fine. Fortunately, they were saved by not having their face on the DRE website with their pretty little mugshot, but they did have to pay the fine. avoid double ending that property that is not fully marketed. It's best to refer potential buyers to another agent. And that's where I'm fearful of agents that are representing a lot of flippers out there, because they're out there, bring me your deals, bring me your deals. And you have a listing, you don't broadly market it, but most importantly, you don't have the conversation and document you had the conversation with that seller. Hey, this investor really wants to buy this property. Now, if we go to the open market, you are going to expose it to a broader range of people, but you're telling me you don't want to do that because you don't want people coming to your house. You want to make the sale easy. You really just, you're okay and comfortable with this. If you document that, that's your saving grace. If you don't document it, then that's where you get in trouble. Any questions on that? And I know this is heavy, but we're trying to protect you to make sure that that seller's not coming after you 2 years later, because that's usually when they do, and saying, you know what, we're in an escalated real estate market. I really could have got more money for that home. And my agent really just said, here, just sell it to this investor. And then they hire a pit bull attorney, which this one is a pit bull, and he has been ruthless. Even though our attorney's really, really great, this one's just as ruthless. All right, question.
I have a question.
Yes, baby.
Okay, is it true that when you have a coming soon status that agents from your own brokerage can show that property, but nobody else's brokerage can show the property? Is that correct?
If that buyer has a buyer broker agreement with our brokerage.
Okay, so you have to stipulate that.
Yeah.
If the agent said they want to come see the property.
Yeah. Is that correct, Mark? Is that right? That was originally the rule that they had. And I think that was CRMLS had that it was okay to do that, but SCMLS didn't.
I'm going to double check. I think we have a SDMLS document, like a guide, a quick guide equivalent on that topic. I'll look for it.
Thank you, Mark.
I'm dropping the Q&A for defensible space in the chat box, so please read that. What's the most common complaint principal will tell me? You said it before.
My agent didn't tell me.
Your agent never told me that. Okay. And then to finish up, just to review, Mark's initial review and final review, we make these things to make it easier for you to understand what you may or may not be missing in a transaction so that you get your checks on time. So we hope you read it. The top part is what's missing. That's what says agent responsibility. The second part is just our recommendations, not necessary. And then the bottom part is the TCs to do. With that, we're finished. Any questions on this? No, Bueller. There's still 61 people here, which is great, but a majority of them have their screen off, so they're probably sleeping. All right. Well, I appreciate your time. Again, I attempt to just bring this so that you guys are aware and knowledgeable. It's not to admonish you, but it's just to educate and inform and to protect you. Because the last thing I want you to do is pay it. That E&O deductible is 10 grand for that agent that closed that deal two years ago, 10 grand out of their pocket. And they're asking me, how am I going to pay that? Well, how many kids